whether it was the dockers, the print workers, the miners, the shipbuilders, the steel workers. Myself and Dick actually stewarded those marches, and that was the context in which the Workers' Beer Company was set up.
I haven't got much to say. It's the eve of the election, and it's up to you.
It came from a ruthless determination from a few men to create mounting chaos. They're not the massive trade unionists, but there are a few militants who are the wreckers.
What you gonna do?
They seek to use freedom in order to destroy freedom.
We won't go away. 'Cause we've
They must not succeed.
The Callaghan government immediately before hadn't been exactly, a bunch of cherries, but it still, nonetheless, it did seem this was unbelievable that what we were now going to get was going to go that way.
Well, the winter in discontent was actually what precipitated the actual the demise of the Callaghan government and the election of Thatcher, and that's really where that's the political context in which we're looking.
There was a lot of industrial strife during the 70s, which led to numerous industrial disputes.
That was a very challenging time for the Trades Council and the labour movement altogether.
They came in quite energetically, looking to experiment with policies that the central office of the Tory party were interested in.
Things such as were happening in other places, like the closure of all the heavy industry that had existed in Wandsworth, just disappearing.
Generally speaking, it was the first of many serious attacks upon the labour movement. And we were involved in all of that, and by and large we were backpedaling but trying to put a brave face on it all.
Whatever you do, said Mr Thatcher, it won't work, don't even try. And so in the 70s we were struggling against those ideas as they came forward, and then of course when Thatcher won in 79, that battle really began in earnest.
Great Britain was coming to terms with what it was going to become, really, rather than what it had been.
The company came from the grassroots, a genuine grassroots movement, which started down in Battersea.
Very powerful history in that part of South London. Very powerful history about trade union organising.
It was our involvement in the labour movement in the district that actually sort of enabled us to sort of get involved in the different projects that were coming around the line.
Even within the general political climate, Wandsworth, where we were, was on the front line at the same time. So it was an easy thing to get off the ground, actually, because there's so many enthusiastic people.
The Labour GLC was elected, and Livingston became leader.
And the Junction Resource Centre was funded by the GLC, and it was very much actually, and Dick was down there as well, and Dave Pears and a whole range of others. And that basically, they were very much at the centre of things.
And that's where the Trades Council did meet for a whole period of time.
The GLC, in a sense, rode partially to the rescue. It funded the Resource Centre, Law Centre, other bodies in Wandsworth, which helped to sort of keep the fight going.
But we also used the facilities we had to agitate, and agitation is a great thing to be able to do, particularly if the Conservative government is paying for it.
Between 1979 and about the 5 years that followed, I would say probably half the actual membership of the unions in the area actually disappeared. So in point of fact, if the Trades Council hadn't actually gone down the fundraising route, the likelihood is that the Trades Council would have disappeared.
We were in that state where we were trying to resist what we saw as things that were going to change our lives, other people's lives, and we had no money to do it.
Why we needed funding, why we as Battersea and Wandsworth Trades Union Council always wanted to sort of have additional money was because we wanted to do additional things.
We put our energies into making sure we had the resources and the sinews to carry on campaigning on our own agenda, and fundamentally it meant money.
A lot of us have been doing benefits in community centres and in pub rooms. We never made any money on putting on a benefit because the person that made the money was the person with the bar. And we had figured this one out, that if you wanted to make money from a benefit, you had to sell beer.
County Hall was opened in 1922 with full pomp and ceremony by King George V and Queen Mary. It was to become known as London's own Parliament.
Under Labour control, it expanded its role in education, building model schools and taking on vast housing schemes. It was in the vanguard of municipal socialism.
Now, our first activities as a trade union council were organising free concerts that the GLC funded. Small grants, £15,000, £20,000, but we'd get 30,000 people there.
What the GLC did was provided space for those people to operate and to do things.
There were things that the GLC put on while it still existed, because it had this idea that it would be good to, you know, a good public provision is to give people a chance to get out and enjoy themselves.
And it was retailing the beer at those big GLC festivals that really started giving us, you know, the opportunity and making our mark, really.
The GLC has designated 1984 as anti-racist year. As well as fighting the government's abolition plans, it's been mounting a campaign to get a fairer deal for the black community in jobs, education and housing. Today's rally marked the high point of that campaign. London's official town crier was getting into the spirit of the occasion, and there was even a guest appearance by the American pop star Stevie Wonder.
You know, huge activities I'd mentioned around the anti-apartheid movement and, you know, that sort of thing. And, you know, we were able to, you know, participate in all of that.
A national anti-apartheid march was coming down to Clapham Common and coming over the bridge, coming into our borough, and we gave them a very special welcome. I remember we built a giant puppet, a 40-foot puppet, to welcome them over the bridge. And then we put on a bar on Clapham Common. We sold so much beer that day that that record stayed for many, many years. And that was where we really cut our teeth on those very big events.
We were trading really unincorporated from 1980 until 1985. So we had 5 years worth of trading experience under our belt by the time we actually set the company up.
During that period we were doing these events, and we did some really nice events with all sorts of really nice artists. Good, you know, good music, which is where we first met Billy Bragg.
Well, I particularly remember playing a gig in Battersea Park, which was just massive. I don't know how many people were there, but it was huge. There was 5 or 6 stages. You know, there's photographs of me on stage and I look like I'm playing some great big stadium somewhere, but it's actually in Battersea Park.
And wouldn't it be really nice to have bars that were run by an organisation that somehow put the money back into the community rather than just it being some guy with money who was putting it in his back pocket?
A very simple idea, an incredibly simple idea, because it twinned up the need to raise funds inside the movement with the realities of life.
Because I also knew a bit about organising gigs, I somehow ended up being given the job of organising this thing called Jobs Year.
2,500 trade unionists came to give their support as the marchers, most but not all of them unemployed, headed south. As they walked, they knew the person they most wanted to put their grievances to at the other end. Mrs. Thatcher had already indicated she would not meet them in London.
I've been at work for 4 years. The GLC wanted to put on Jobs for a Change, and they agreed to do it in partnership. And the upshot of it was really that the Trades Council managed to run a big bar there and make money on that bar. And I think the model definitely came from that.
The money that was made was beyond the beer company's wildest dreams. I'm still saying beer company, but at the time it was Battersea and Wandsworth Trade Union Council who'd made this money selling beer. It was like, what do we do with this money? And one of the things we decided quite quickly was, a group of individuals shouldn't have this amount of money knocking around. We must have a proper legal structure.
No,
came up with this idea that there was a musical song in the 1930s, a trade union song, about the very fat man that watered the workers' beer. And I won't sing the song because it will just sound terrible, but the chorus line is, I'm the man, the very fat man who waters the workers' beer. And of course that was just an interim name, and we were going to find a proper name after a bit, but it stuck.
I first became aware of the beer company when it was being started through my good friend Dick Muscat. He told me the idea that him and some colleagues from Battersea Trades Council were planning to set up this company selling beer.
Difficult to recollect exactly when it was. Myself and Steve Pryle, Dick Muscat and Dave Pearce all sat down in the Beehive pub up on St John's Hill in Battersea.
I wasn't at the meeting in the Beehive, as far as I can remember.
It evolved. It evolved, and we all have memories of what we think was the crucial sort of was the crucial meetings.
And I'd say that was sort of late 1983, with the idea of creating a company that would be owned by the Trades Council, that would actually work in, it would have profit as its aim. It would be a limited company, so it would have profit as its aim.
And then, obviously, in terms of the mobilisation that was actually going on, in terms of actually sort of, you know, Dick Muscat and a whole range of other people, you know, actually pretty fundamental to actually building up the corpus of policy that actually went to make up the Workers' Beer Company.
But because we were dealing with booze and we were handling money, it had to be quite a tight or disciplined organisation because, you know, to put it crudely, we didn't want people pissing away the profits or simply walking off with them in a fit of absent-mindedness.
A small group of people initially, but a larger group of people thereafter that became the Workers' Beer Company Committee, all of whom had got very strong sort of ethos of social conscience, really, and social conscience would be at the heart of it rather than this particular style of left-wing politic or that particular style of left-wing politic.
We spent a long time 20 years ago trying to work out how we could build a constitution that would stop any tiny faction taking it over, because we wanted it to be for the broad, for the betterment, so we could put the money into the movement in the widest sense. And I don't believe that desire, that ambition has gone away. It shouldn't go away.
I think Steve was visionary in how he took us forward. I mean, that's why I said it was, left to the likes of me. I mean, I was still doing, an event in Battersea Park.
We evolved, I think, uniquely the system of involving labour movement organisations, Labour Party branches, trade union branches, other community groups, in providing volunteers, and we would pay the organisation. So we tried to get a collective element into the whole concept.
And the insight that we could get the campaigns and the labour movement bodies to give us the bar staff in return for paying them the money. That was I had that insight. I was the one who actually said, this will work.
Yeah, I think the fundamental thing that sustained us and kept us going through some very difficult times was the demand placed upon us by the server organisation.
Individual campaigns, local campaigns, national campaigns, international campaigns that we wanted to support.
Nicaragua Solidarity Campaign, CND. There was no other place in the 80s and early 90s they could get that kind of money. They weren't getting it from the trade union movement, they weren't getting it from anywhere else. So, they were clearly pushing us to make sure we continue to get bigger and bigger events so they could raise that money, and that was one of the great achievements of the beer company.
I think the motivation was, we could make money for good causes here. We could actually, there is a way of putting money back into the trade union movement without having to just do bucket collections outside tube stations.
What happened was that this huge new source of finance was put at the disposal of the labour movement, instead of it all being, as usual, going to Murdoch and big business.
All the people that come and work for us and serve drinks at our bars and so on, they are earning money for organisations that they belong to, campaigns that they belong to. And in that way, in the lean times, we put huge, millions really of pounds back into the labour movement.
Most of the money goes straight out to the organisations working in the beer tents.
That enabling people to help themselves has been the core of this. We've never ever tried, in terms of our server policy in the organisation, we've never tried to dictate what people spend the money on.
That is the one thing about it, it is not charity.
And that kind of empowering spirit has kept people coming back.
The lifeblood, as far as I'm concerned, of the beer company is the people who actually pull the pint. And there's a huge logistical effort that goes in from the beer company office, the people who actually mobilise the server teams, the team managers, in order to get to that point where the pints are pulled actually on the site and the money starts coming in.
Tim Mills and Mick Flynn and Jeannie McTavish, and it's their planning in many ways that brings it all together on site and makes it happen for the company.
And then that money is recycled back into those campaigning groups who provide the service. Some of it goes back into the initiatives that the beer company in Battersea and Wandsworth TUC are taking.
Spent a couple of years working behind bars as a server, and then in the reign of Glastonbury in '97 was made up to a manager. Worked my first management shift at Glastonbury on the Mandela as a cellar manager, and I've been slowly working my way through every position in the company, I think, ever since.
That they want to come back, and why they want to come back is that sense of occasion, that sense of being involved with something, that sense of friendship, that sense of what it's all about and what we can do with the money as an organisation, and that sense of how people are treated and have respect for each other when they work at events, basically.
They're always looking for keen, enthusiastic volunteers to work for them and enjoy the experience of working with like-minded people, as well as doing a very, very useful job in terms of fundraising for the Labour movement nationally and internationally.
My first year at Glastonbury, and the last night when we all had a big come together and a party at the end of the event.
Good fun, a lot of hard work, but a lot of fun.
Work hard, party hard, yeah.
Also gives you the opportunity whilst working to talk about my trade union side of things as well, and the link between the beer company and the union.
You know, there was a certain, also, I think, well, certainly for myself, you know, there was a feeling of political impotence. And yes, I mean, you know, working for the beer company, doing work with the beer company, knowing that the money was going to progressive causes, it was actually, you know, it was felt like a part of a resistance.
Seen in this country is the emergence of an organized revolutionary minority who are prepared to exploit industrial disputes, but whose real aim is the breakdown of law and order and the destruction of democratic parliamentary government.
When she says enemy within, she means within the country, against the people of this country. We're not the enemy within in that case, but we're the enemy within against Thatcher. Because we are Thatcher's enemy. There's no way we'll let her have her own way, and that's what she don't like about it. She's got to pull us down.
Clearly the miners' strike is where, again, that government takes on the miners as the most strong and important area of organised labour, which has got to be beaten if they're going to try and beat us all down. And that meant that that struggle involved all of us who were trade unionists up and down the country.
We were fighting against soldiers, police, the government, and shame on the government to this day, because to actually declare war on their own workers, for me, can never be forgiven. I first met people in Battersea and Wandsworth TUC 21 years ago when we were on strike and it was Christmas, and we were looking at a very bleak Christmas for all us communities and families, with no money, with no job prospects. And if truth were known, we were facing defeat.
It was something that everybody rallied round, really. And in Battersea, we affiliated with a number of different trade unions, a number of different NUM branches. We affiliated with a branch down in Kent. We affiliated down with a branch in Wales, and we, generally had them staying at our houses. We were feeding them, looking after them while they were out fundraising in London. We were doing fundraising left, right, and centre.
Now, there's fundraising of all kinds that's going off at present time. There's concerts and folk concerts and all types of fundraising events within these communities. And there's a play called Bread and Roses,
They're trying to break union.
How do you know so much about it?
We had a lad from there up at Pitt.
Oh, a pit?
Aye, they were outside collecting when we come off just now.
I never saw him.
Happened he'd been wound off there.
Did you get him out?
Of course we did. And some breakfast.
He must have thought all his birthdays had come at once.
Myself and 2 or 3 other people set up a company, an organisation called Pedal Against Pit Closures, which essentially was doing sponsored bike rides to and from London to different pits, and you know, we'd get sponsorship for it.
And they raised £13,000, which actually paid for a full Christmas dinner and tea and presents for 850 striking miners and the family. And that is one act which, even 21 years on, I can't come to terms with, that somebody down south that living in a big city that's got good prospects would give up their time, efforts and energy to support us that really needed it at that time.
And that really was a relationship then that was, you know, sort of 100% formed.
I mean, in London too, you know, it occupied time and minds of massive amounts of people from different campaign groups and from the trade unions in raising funds, in going up to support people, try and go to the picket lines.
The generosity of people down south astounded us, because we came back with buckets full of money all the time. But it weren't just money that we needed. We needed support, we needed moral support, as confidence were going down and down every week with striking miners going back to work.
Having people down from the coalfields to London as well for fundraising and you know, explaining to people at large what the issues were.
And over the next weeks and months, almost a year, they became part of our lives, and that we formed friendships that go on today, over 20 years.
My first real exposure to the miners from Derbyshire was at Gay Pride in Kennington Park, where I saw huge, burly, tattooed miners dancing with the drag queens in an open field.
Those miners became the backbone of our serving community, you know, in terms of service for the Workers' Beer Company. Subsequently became the backbone of much of our management.
The miners did the labour work, that's doing all the cellars and all the umping and physical work on that first bar in that park. And that was the very first one that they did, and there's been a miner present at 99% of every event that the beer company's done since.
Ken Livingstone became very unpopular with the Tories. From his office overlooking the Thames, which this morning he was tidying up for the last time, he supported extreme left-wing politics and was generous in his financial support for fringe bodies. That support led to headlines like these: "The loony left lashes out on beer, women and song," and "You mustn't refuse cake from a gay." All this activity by Ken Livingstone infuriated the Tories, and it made Mrs. Thatcher even more determined that he and the GLC should be closed down.
It was pretty intense times for all of us, and lots of us in public service. I mean, you know, in terms of where we worked, you know, right the way through, you know, local government and local government in particular.
You know, we were no longer being able to rely on grants anymore from the GLC. Thatcher was getting rid of all that type of stuff. So we had to become self-funding, self-financing.
It was clear that, you know, the days were numbered. She would be able to get rid of its existence entirely.
I mean, at that point, we needed a bit of luck.
We got to know Michael Eavis really through his nephew. His nephew was one of the talent buyers, one of the programmers, the promoters, the bookers for the GLC, a guy called Tony Hollingsworth. And Tony was, you know, we got to know Tony through doing the bars and being involved with the GLC festivals.
He was doing some stuff for them, he was doing some concerts for them, and then he came to work for, well, I mean, I've known Tony all my life, obviously, but when he came and gave me a hand, you know, in 1980, maybe 81.
And Tony, in the course of events, said to us, Glastonbury has real problems with having a bar.
Tony came up with the idea of the beer company actually doing the beer because it was socially sort of sound and everything.
And then Michael actually felt we were a fit to do the Glastonbury Festival.
Bringing people together, Michael loved the idea of us bringing groups down that were working for campaigns, because he was very big on that.
And Steve and I went down and, you know, chatted to Michael, and again, it was an easy relationship because our politics were similar, and you know, we started doing the beer, and subsequently started doing more than that.
He didn't want it to be too commercial, he didn't want it to be a complete sort of drunk fest. So Tony affected the introduction between what the embryonic Workers' Beer Company and Michael Eavis, and from that we ended up working at Glastonbury.
So it's Tony's little number, this one, but Tony came and went and saw and conquered and left and disappeared. But Workers' Beer is still here.
I specialised in the commercial side of things. Melvin specialised in the production side of things. Melvin was a lighting spark at Thames TV, and Melvin was an incredibly practical person.
He's worked very hard. He's, you know, he's one person that never counts the hours. He's driven up and down the motorway like in chase of licences on behalf of all of us, really.
So as well as being a political visionary, I mean, he actually also was very, very good with his hands, and you know, he was able to sort of put together the electrics and all the rest of it.
A unique festival man.
He was also a very good organiser, and so he quite quickly became one. Michael Eavis liked him a lot, and he had a good relationship with Michael, and we then helped Michael, he helped Melvin in particular, helped Michael organise stewarding and the sort of control of the gates.
Melvin then came along as part of the Workers' Beer package, I think, because they helped with some of the stewarding and some of the controlling the gates and that kind of thing. So that they put forward a whole lot of stewards to do the gate stewarding.
Which was chaotic. And Melvin played a major role, and that was part of the beer company.
It's been a bad week for lovers of Glastonbury. The Summer Rock Show has been cancelled this year after thousands of people jumped a fence to watch last year's festival.
So I thought that when I was in trouble later, I wanted Melvin back, you see. So then 20 years after that, or 15 years after that, I was on the phone to Melvin again, because I worked with him, you know, through the 80s, and I knew what sort of fellow he was and what he could do.
And in the very first Glastonbury, Jerry Gleeson actually specialised in getting the staff.
The experience was, what a better way to get your trade union branch going than to take them on a big party and raise money at the same time. So you don't have to do any more jumble sales. You could just come away for the weekend, all camp together. I mean, it was a really good organising tool for the people. That was what was organised.
At the end of the day, you've got to have a sense of humour to work with a Workers' Beer Company at times. You've got to admit that one, because it is fun. You know, at night when we're trying to sup a tanker dry, when Tim's not looking, and having a drink and getting to know the others in the village, it's fun, you know. And if it weren't fun, if it were just a job, people wouldn't come.
Given their expertise in logistics, i.e. handling great heavy weights like beer barrels, building tents and dealing with the infrastructure on sites, we were able to give them lots of work on a voluntary basis to start off with. And the whole thing grew and grew, and they have taken on responsibility for putting together the site down at Glastonbury, which consists of 10 bars and workers' villages, etc. And out of that came their own company, Clause 4.
I call myself now, from being a social agent provocateur to being a socialist entrepreneur. Because 5 years ago, we realised that we were too big just working as an arm in the Workers' Beer Company, and Battersea and Wandsworth TUC gave us the opportunity and the chance to form our own limited company. Clause 4, we started 5 years ago.
Is now promoting trade union related events, doing all sorts of stuff within the movement.
Their entrepreneurial spirit as well, I guess, to build something for themselves because the mines had closed down.
The can-do attitude of the guys from the coalface, literally the guys from the coalface, who stood shoulder to shoulder in really difficult conditions, and then sort of transposing those skills into an environment like a rock and roll festival. Completely unfazed by anything, wading through 6 foot of mud and, you know, with their trucks stuck out here, there and everywhere.
It was sinking into the ground and we were running around trying to find a forklift truck to pick it up. And by the time we came back, the miners had lifted it by hand by putting sleepers under and had lifted it. And that was the kind of thing they used to do in the mines, I suppose. So they brought a whole new set of skills that we didn't have. And we've worked with them very closely ever since.
What we've demonstrated is what we know, working class communities working together. And through the movement, there's very little they can't achieve.
Everything's got a solution. That's socialism to me. There's always a solution to a problem if you choose to work together in order to find it.
And I'd like to think that wherever we go, that the ethics of the trade union movement and the camaraderie we take to sight, which only people we work with can testify to.
Some of the most important people we've met and worked with over the years have been promoters. People like Vince Power.
When I first decided I was going to buy a Reading Festival, that was '88, and then '89 I started to put it together.
We did Reading in '89 with Vince Power.
Vince had been offered 50% of Reading Festival in '88. Reading Festival had been bankrupt in '88, and Vince was offered 50% of it.
Mr. Power is now a formidable force in the music industry, controlling several music venues. Every year, thousands of people descend on a site in the northwest area of Reading. They come for a feast of music that over the years has included jazz and blues, indie bands and so-called grunge rock.
The people of Reading, I would say, the Reading Festival now has a good and long-term future. It's probably with the best live music organisation in the country, and look forward to a long future for it. My first initial sort of idea was to do the beer myself.
And so we came to see Vince about the idea of us doing the bars. Met next door in the Mean Fiddler, I remember, thrashed out a deal.
But he came and offered me a deal, and it's a bit like put your money where your mouth is, and they did, and got on with it, and we got on well together,
And also put the idea to Vince of creating the Flower Festival, which we also did, and that progressed.
Yeah, the Flower is an Irish concept, of course, and it has gone back to, it's a very ancient Gaelic name that means music festival.
Well, the Flower was, I don't know where the first idea of the Flower came from, but I think that maybe just both of us really, we realised that, there was a couple of pretty awful Irish festivals happening in London at the time.
There was there was an organisation in Wandsworth called Battersea Wandsworth Irish Group, and I was a member of it. And every St Patrick's Day, we used to do a big St Patrick's Day So we were pretty up to speed with Irish music, and of course Vince did a lot of Irish music in the Mean Fiddler in Harlesden.
The Flowers are very strongly linked to the Green and to Era, as I believe it's pronounced.
And some amazing bands. Too many to count, too many to even talk about,
So myself and Melvin and Rory and Rory Buds had this idea that basically, because what we should do is actually put together a proper Irish event, and do it properly, because there were some fabulous artists around. So we went to Vince and we said to Vince, we think we think this would be a goer.
And I think the idea was that, the Mean Fiddler was a very successful venue, and I had access to all the acts, the very big Irish acts at the time, which would have been Christy Moore and, Chieftains, Clannad, Van Morrison. And I think it was a giant decision that we would actually go ahead and do an Irish festival.
And the rest, as I say, is history. We put on some fabulous shows, and I certainly hope you're going to have some footage in the film.
She had to cut me loose. I liked her a lot, like lovers do, like lovers do. I liked her a lot.
Your eyes, babe, I was just singing all the love, but somehow this black night feels warmer for the spark.
Isis started Diana, Hecate Demeter Kali in her na. Isis started Diana, Hecate Demeter Kali in her na.
Hollywood, I long to be, I don't mean California, but in County Wicklow, Ireland's lovely garden, where no pretenders will you find, but decent people, warm and kind, and flocks of friendly sheep into the bargain.
Oh, the mud splatter victims help the path along the ancient highway. Torn between half-truth and victimization, fighting back with counterattacks. Yes, when that road of God goes right.
Well, the flower was great. I mean, one of the greatest things I had each year was when you walked onto the Finsbury Park site for the flower early in the day before the crowds got there, and you'd see the scrims on the speakers, and the buzz that you got when it actually said Workers' Beer Company and Mean Fiddler Presents was great, and that was a great thing because you really did feel that we'd produced. And then when you saw 30,000 people having a great time, to the Saw Doctors and the Pogues and Christie and so on, that was just a fantastic event. And we used that event obviously to make money, but we used that event in terms of political statement in terms of the North London community, the Irish community and the broader Irish community. But we also used that as a great rallying point. One of the best areas of the flower was really the Trace Council backstage area, where we would use that to real network with the politicos that we needed to. And every year you'd find Bob Crow in there, or Ken Livingstone in there, or various wannabe government ministers in there, and we did an awful lot of political work for the Trace Council and for the movement while we were there.
But then the Flower Moor, what we did in Ireland, that was it, which the Workers' Beer Company will never forgive me for.
We lost £250,000 in Ireland with Vince, and it looked as if we were going under there. But we didn't, thankfully.
Really lovely weekend. Great bands, Ray Charles, Jerry Lee Lewis, Van Morrison, Bob Dylan, and a load of other acts. I mean, 45, 50 acts. But, a huge loss, and not very happy people coming away.
The Garda had come in and shut the bars down on the Sunday, and then Bob Dylan, when he came on stage, with a crowd that was totally sober, which it must have been a first in Ireland, stepped out on the stage, and his very first song was "Everybody's Gonna Get Stoned," and then he fell off end at stage, to much surprise and laughter among the crowd. Especially, I can remember seeing the faces, because I was looking from the pit at the crowd that watched this, and it were in totally, it were, because they hadn't got a drink and they were totally pissed.
If we had everybody there that said they were there, we would have actually sold it out 3 times over. It becomes a romantic idea that, but they hear it from their friends, and I don't think it. We had about 15,000 people there, but we needed 45,000 people. But some you win, some you lose. They've been very supportive towards myself and the Mean Fiddler over the years, and it's been a great relationship.
And again, a relationship that that developed even further. Really, we've Workers' Beer have done that beer at every Mean Fiddler festival ever since, actually. So again, pretty solid relationship, and I guess I started straight away to sort of help Vince with more than just the beer. Again, other aspects of the festival, production, organisation, literally everything really. And eventually I severed my formal ties with the Workers' Beer Company, and came to set up a festival office at the Mean Fiddler to develop more festivals, and that's what we've done. And again, the more festivals we've developed, the more festivals the Workers' Beer Company have sold beer at, really.
Between the Mean Fiddler's ability to obviously book acts and relationships with artists and managers and for the bands and things like that, and our our sense of being able to organise things and apply for licences and talk to local authorities and understanding of infrastructure, there grew a very good alliance, basically, whereby we both played to our strengths and we both had mutual respect for what we had to do and we both trusted each other and we got on with it, basically.
They were like really interested and really conscientious about the customer and stuff. And of course, you know, there was a good sort of cause of the campaigning and the idea of everybody gaining from it.
So over the years, we've drawn on the skills that we've needed. We needed some manual skills from the miners in Derbyshire to help build the tents and things like that, and then, you know, just know how to work. We needed managerial skills we got from members of the management committee coming in from local government. We needed the political skills and the connections with the trade union movement, and we needed the business acumen and the business skills to do the deals with Michael and Vince at the end of the day. Because, you know, despite the fact that they have been great supporters of ours, they're business partners. You know, we've had no charity from Vince Power or Michael Eavis. If we couldn't have cut the mustard and done the business for their partners, we wouldn't be here now.
Yeah, I think they're operators in their own right now. I don't think, I mean, they're just one step away. I don't know if they want to go down that road because, you know, they're well valued at Glastonbury and, you know, they are a huge part of Glastonbury. I think Michael has obviously been a huge support to them, but they've been a huge part of the infrastructure of Glastonbury and instrumental in getting myself and the main fiddler in there to turn it around with Melbourne.
We've got the left field now. The left field is just, you know, phenomenal. Brilliant, actually, idea.
I got to meet Michael Eavis through Steve Pratt from the beer company, and I was really pleased to have a chance to sit down and talk to Michael about some of the political work of the organisation. It was really through those discussions, through Batsy and Wandsworth TUC and the beer company, the idea of the left field was first conceived, really. And then we were meeting with Michael in a restaurant in Crosskeel in County Meath. We were over there to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the writing of the red flag, and we took a big show over there with Billy Bragg and all the rest of it. It was an absolutely fantastic occasion. And we were in a restaurant with Michael, and that's where the deal was sealed to actually have a left field stage at Glastonbury.
Well, I think the influence of an outfit like the Workers' Beer Company can be seen at the left field at Glastonbury. You know, they were very important to us in convincing Michael Eavis that there should be a left field, you know, that the union should have a space there, that there should be part of Glastonbury that was strictly and specifically about mainstream politics, because there's a lot, you know, it's a radical festival, Glastonbury, but the politics that were always expressed there were single issue politics. They were anti-nuclear, they were pro-environment, anti-racist. By the Workers' Beer Company going in 5 or 6 years ago now, that kind of opened the door for left field to be able to set up a place there where we could draw all these issues together and have a specific place for not just for gigs and music, but also for debate and discussion as well. And I think the beer company were, you know, really helped bring the unions and the festival together.
Integrating the music and the politics and trying to get through to another generation of people that might become trade unionists and activists in the workplace.
It's become quite a key player now, the left field situation. And we get Wedgie Ben and we get Billy Bragg there every year. And I mean, they all turn up and sort of, you know, do their usual. And it's a nice part of the festival because that campaigning element is what the festival was all about originally with the C&D thing and everything. So it's good to hang on to that with everything else that's going on.
We originally got involved with the Workers' Beer Company back in 2004, and we had exhibitions at Glastonbury's Left Field. We also had server allocations for our members, which was good because the server allocations at the festivals offered something to our existing members, but it also appealed to new members, particularly young people as well, which can be quite difficult for trade unions.
Brightens up the image because, I mean, people think of, I imagine people, I mean, I certainly do even now, I think trade union got boring, you know, and I'm sure young people do as well. So, you know, by getting involved in events like this and getting involved and encouraging younger people to get involved as well and help out and work on these events is a lot of fun, and that brightens up life in general.
I think some people were maybe a bit sceptical about why we were doing this. Obviously, it looks like we're just there to have a bit of fun. But really it's shown us what we need to be doing to appeal to young people and younger generation.
There's no doubt about it. So, I mean, if you combine a trade union event with some kind of social event, it's not just about listening to the main key speakers, it's about listening to your brothers and sisters by the side of you and picking up experiences.
There's always a tension between the need for commercial success and keeping to our socialist and trade unionist principles. And we've made an effort to keep the two things together. We had a convention in 2003 which was trying to integrate more closely the political side of the organisation and the trading side.
We need big profitable events, big profitable jobs, because there's a lot of money each year goes into organising workers in South West London and beyond.
Well, clearly, obviously, setting up the organising centre was a huge achievement for us, because we wanted to reunionise the borough. It was one of the things we said we wanted to do.
They're going into workplaces, they're organising people in retail, organising people in they're trying to help people almost in any employment situation in the borough at all. They've helped all the unions. Every union has got a thank you now.
We're the organising centre for Battersea and Wandsworth TUC down at Kingston Hospital, helping Unison at Kingston Hospital to recruit more members.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the festival side of it is really fun and, everyone goes there and it's a really good laugh. But obviously here is where the real recruitment takes place. And, we're here at Kingston today trying to nab more people for Unison. And just speaking to people and trying to promote trade unions and why they should be in them, because obviously the hospital has a huge range of people, from nurses to physiotherapists to porters to cleaners. So it's a union for everybody basically, and they should all try and get involved to protect themselves at work.
Basically, the money from the Workers' Beer Company funds our organising centre and enables us to help trade unionists on the ground all over South West London.
Last year, Battersea and Wandsworth TUC took us underneath their wing, and they have organised us, and they come once a month, and we have a stall here at the canteen, and we speak to staff, and we've recruited probably 160, 170 members in the last year, thanks to them.
It allows us to talk to healthcare workers, not just about joining Unison, but about the changes and how the changes in healthcare can affect them as workers and as union members.
We're helping people who've got a union to recruit more members, get more activists, train them up, and people who haven't got a union to start a union.
Now, the Battersea and Wandsworth TUC Organising Centre have actually helped us loads on this campaign. They did a lot of phoning round for us. They've actually come here on the day. They've manned some of the pickets as well. But it's also that support thing, as sort of local trade unionist myself, really, it's nice to know that someone's there on the end of a phone. They can help you with press and publicity. And, also just sort of working out what your campaign strategy is going to be. But no, I think Beer Company is a valuable not resource, that's the wrong word, but it's a valuable organisation, because so many groups that wouldn't have any other funding are keep going by the money in which their volunteers raise at the Workers' Beer Company events. But also, really, it's the fundraising arm of the Battersea and Wandsworth TUC, and without the money that it raises, you wouldn't have things like the organising centre. You wouldn't even have really stuff like Left Field and all the rest of it, because that is where the money comes from.
And as we speak, we are planning a big national dispute at Asda. To get trade union, this is one of the biggest company in the world, 1.8 million people in it.
Today we've got a national meeting of all the Asda stewards who cover the warehouse sector. It's in response to the actions taken by the company in terms of trying to de-recognise the GMB at the Dartford site, and also not paying the bonus that was promised to people, even though they've worked throughout the year for it, and also the actions generally of Asda's in trying to undermine the union, which is very much in line with the Walmart activities we see in America.
We're just about to be discussing national strike action.
Well, the Organising Centre has been excellent in terms of providing resources to actually demonstrate outside stores and bring to the public's attention, and also to the workforce attention, the fact that there are people here who will support their activities and are sympathetic to their cause. We've had a tremendous response from the workforce and from the general public when we've raised the issues, and I can't speak highly enough of the Organising Centre and the work they've done for us.
We're supporting the Asda workers. Walmart, one of the world's biggest companies, not prepared to share profits, not prepared to work with their workers, what else can you do? Go out in the streets. That's what it's all about, brother.
The two recent initiatives that came out from Trades Council were ethical threads and work ethic.
I got recruited to work for Work Ethic, which is their ethical recruitment drive for students to work at festivals with the Workers' Beer Company.
The idea really is that because we can muster so many people, well surely there's a job to be done here mustering people in an ethical way, so they're paid properly, etc., etc., for other events.
The last few years we've done political work at the festivals, mainly at Glastonbury, where we go around and talk to all the servers and find out what they know about trade unionism and the Workers' Beer Company, and we build up a list of contacts of people that could be brought into the trade union movement.
And also just getting people from all different areas of campaigning, not just trade unions. You know, it gets people from all different sort of areas of campaigning as well and brings them together.
Ethical Threads is obviously another internationally based thing, trying to source ethically sound clothing and penetrating the music industry.
So, and the beer actually produces profit that goes into employing people, trade union activism, etc. And the ethical threads goes right back to basics and helps the people right down in the field.
For me, working with the unions and Workers' Beer Company and putting on gigs and doing rock and roll with them has been really, really helpful, because for a long time we wanted to be able to sell our audience T-shirts that were not made in sweatshops, which was really problematical.
And the aim is, if we do go into profit, that we will be able to finance fair trade and union campaigns around the world. We've already donated some money to the Levi Workers campaign in Haiti.
The work that the Workers' Beer Company has been doing in terms of raising funds for the BWTUC's campaigns has been absolutely crucial in terms of being able to really shore up the work that unions are doing in countries like Haiti, where the average daily wage is little over £1. Obviously, it becomes very, very difficult to collect substantial subs from your members in order to finance such simple things that we take for granted, like stationery, photocopying, etc., etc. None of these things would be possible without the support that's been raised, amongst others, by the Workers' Beer Company.
BWTC have always been committed to international issues as well as to local projects, and I think a really good example of that is that they invited Juan Carlos, who's a Colombian trade unionist, to speak at their annual conference, and then at a Colombian night at the Bread and Roses. And following on from that, we invited Juan Carlos to come with us to Glastonbury as part of our server team. And so he had the chance to speak to other servers about the situation in Colombia, and we raised a stack of cash for Justice for Colombia project.
You from
Justice for Colombia, yeah.
Justice Colombia as well.
Yeah,
Justice for Colombia. And he's thrilled to meet you, absolutely thrilled well, to meet you. This international trade union movement is going to be what it's about.
Yeah, exacto. Tony, sirviendo cervezas me di cuenta de que los ingleses beben mucho. Just when I was serving beer, I just found out that the English people like to drink a lot.
Not Tony, just tea. I'm keeping alcohol for my old age.
It was inevitable that the beer company and Billy Bragg got together because we were coming from the same place. And now we're very proud. Billy's the resident at the Tolpuddle Festival down in the West Country, which we help the Southwest TUC put on every year. And of course, through the Left Field, which is part of Battersea and Wandsworth Trades Council, we're sponsoring his Hope Not Hate tour, which is going out now in 2006.
For me, going out on the road, working with the unions, it seems only natural. Particularly with this tour, obviously.
Right, here we are then, 20 years on now, and this is where we are, on a stage, instead of down there in pits. You know, 20 years we've come from just labouring on sites to producing events. We're now promoters. And here we are on the set, on the stage at Bradford University with the Hope Not Hate tour. The sponsors are anti-fascist groups against the BNP local elections, which is coming up next week. So we hope we can do some good.
And I'm very proud to still be playing under the banner of Unite Against Fascism and Love Music, Hate Racism. We're also here with some of the great unions here, with Unison, with the RMT. The Left Field from Glastonbury are with us as well. Searchlight, the premier anti-fascist magazine in Europe, are also here on tours who've done so much good work. While the rest of us go to sleep during elections, Searchlight are still out there making sure that every move the fascists make, we've got them covered. We know what they're doing. Very brave people from Searchlight. Amicus, the Public Service Union, are with us as well, and the GMB at the top as well. The GMB, I'm very proud to say, have sponsored my tours before. They've done a lot of great work, and my great-grandfather worked in the Beckton Gas Works in the 1880s, where not just the GMB was founded, but the Industrial Union movement was founded in that gasworks in the struggle in 1888. My great-grandfather was there. He was part of the precursor of the GMB Union. These people I've been working with ever since 1984. You know why. You know why we're still standing with these people. You know why, because they represent their members' families, and the communities that those people work and live in. That's why we're backing them. They don't change their politics like political parties. They stay true to one ideal, and that is community and collective provision of free healthcare, free education and decent affordable housing. That's why I'm proud to stand in front of this banner for you to come along here tonight and to play this song, because I believe there is power in a union.
Here we are then, close for promotions. I'd just like to say Melvin, Vince, Michael, keep looking over your shoulder.
There's power in a factory, power in the land, power in the hand of the worker. But it all amounts to nothing if together we don't stand. There is power in a union. Now the lessons of the past are all learned with workers' blood, and the strikes of the bosses we must pay for. From the cities and the farmlands to trenches full of mud, war has always been the boss's way, sir. The union forever defending our rights. Down with the black legal workers unite. With our brothers and our sisters, together we will stand. There is power in a union. I long for the morning that I realise brutality and unjust laws cannot defeat us. Who'll defend the workers who cannot organise when the bosses send their lackeys out to cheat us? Money speaks for money, the devil for his own. Who comes to speak for the skin and the bone? What a comfort to the widow, a light to the child. There is power in a union. The union forever defending our rights. Down with the black legal workers unite. With our brothers and our sisters, together we will stand. There is power